Giuliani receives grand jury subpoena for records related to Trump. The subpoena to Rudolph W. Giuliani in November came as prosecutors have been examining the workings of former President Donald J. Trump's fundraising vehicle. Rudolph W. Giuliani, the lawyer who oversaw former President Donald J. Trump's legal challenges to the 2020 election, has received a grand jury subpoena for records related to his representation of Mr. Trump, including those that detailed any payments he received, a person familiar with the matter said on Monday. The subpoena, which was sent in November, bore the name of a prosecutor in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington. It predated the appointment of Jack Smith, the special counsel chosen to take over the Justice Department's investigation of the roles that Mr. Trump and several of his aides and lawyers played in seeking to overturn the results of the election. It remained unclear, however, if Mr. Smith and his team have assumed control of the part of the inquiry related to Mr. Giuliani. As part of its investigation, the special counsel's office has been examining, among other things, the inner workings of Mr. Trump's fundraising vehicle, Save America PAC. The records subpoenaed from Mr. Giuliani could include some related to payments made by the PAC, according to the person familiar with the matter. Several subpoenas issued in the past several months have asked for records concerning Save America PAC. The House committee that investigated the January 6 attack on the Capitol also looked into Mr. Trump's fundraising operation during its own separate inquiry, and raised questions about whether it had duped donors through misleading appeals about election fraud. A longtime ally of Mr. Trump, Mr. Giuliani effectively ran the former president's attempts to overturn his defeat in the presidential race and has for months been a chief focus of the Justice Department's broad investigation into the post-election period. His name has appeared on several subpoenas sent to former aides to Mr. Trump and to a host of Republican state officials involved in a plan to create fake slates of pro-Trump electors in states that were actually won by Joseph R. Biden Jr. In one of its final acts, the January 6 committee referred Mr. Giuliani and others, including Mr. Trump, for prosecution by the Justice Department. Still, the emergence of the subpoena, which was reported earlier by CNN, was the first time evidence had surfaced suggesting that Mr. Giuliani had become directly embroiled in the inquiry into the part that Mr. Trump played in the events leading up to January 6. Mr. Giuliani's subpoena was issued about 2 months after prosecutors blanketed more than 40 other figures from Mr. Trump's White House with subpoenas. In 2021, the Justice Department seized Mr. Giuliani's cell phones and computers as part of a separate investigation into his efforts to dig up dirt on Mr. Biden in Ukraine. While acting as Mr. Trump's lawyer, Mr. Giuliani undertook an array of efforts on his behalf. He promoted a baseless conspiracy theory that a cabal of international actors had hacked into voting machines produced by Dominion voting systems and used them to rig the election for Mr. Biden, despite the fact that an internal memo from the Trump campaign had determined earlier that many of the outlandish claims about Dominion were untrue. Mr. Giuliani also made persistent claims that the voting had been marred by widespread cheating and irregularities at a series of informal legislative hearings in key swing states around the country. But when he personally appeared in court in Philadelphia to defend a lawsuit challenging the election, he acknowledged to the judge in the case that the suit had not alleged that fraud had actually occurred. Before his subpoena was issued, Mr. Giuliani had confronted an array of setbacks related to his work for Mr. Trump. He is facing a defamation lawsuit from Dominion, alleging that he carried out a viral disinformation campaign about the company made up of demonstrably false allegations, in part to enrich himself through legal fees and his podcast. In June 2021, his law license was suspended after a New York court ruled he had made demonstrably false and misleading statements while fighting the results of the 2020 election. He is also facing similar disciplinary charges by local bar officials in Washington.